They say you can't go home again. That's bullshit. Sometimes home drags you back whether you like it or not. My name's Charles, and 6 months ago I was a high-flying corporate lawyer in San Francisco. Mergers and acquisitions, 100-hour work weeks, that was my world. Then my own internal pump, otherwise known as my heart, decided to go on strike. The doctors laid it out for me plain and simple. Mr. Grant, either you change your life or it's gonna end. This town felt like the only cure, an anchor to a quieter past. Money wasn't an issue. I could have bought a condo in Florida, but I wanted dirt. I wanted to put my hands in the soil to grow something real. My childhood home was occupied, but I found a listing online just down the street. When I saw the satellite view, my breath hitched. It was the old postman's house, Tom's place. A call with the realtor revealed the property belonged to the city, classified as abandoned. Tom hadn't been seen in 30 years, had no known heirs. When I asked what happened to him, the agent just gave a digital shrug over the video call. Just vanished, you know how it is. Like he was talking about a set of misplaced keys. I realize now he was just trying to close the deal. The town had changed, but the bones were the same. The sleepy main street, the familiar family names on the mailboxes, just attached to older faces. I checked into the local motel and the day before closing decided to walk over to my new, future property. The yard was a jungle of weeds and the paint was peeling, but the house had good bones. I was already picturing where I'd plant a rose garden and a plum tree. A wave of nostalgia hit me so hard that on impulse, I walked down the block to my old house. Figured I should meet the neighbors. A woman my age answered the door. "Hi there," I started, trying on my friendliest, non-threatening smile. "Sorry to bother you. My name is Charles Grant. I grew up in this house." She froze for a second, looking me up and down, and then her expression softened. "Well, I'll be. I'm Susie. Get on in here then." We ended up talking on her porch. She'd moved in 24 years ago, inherited the house from her father. "Town's not what it used to be," she said with a sigh, "but it's quiet. Can't complain." "Quiet is what I came for. I'm actually buying a place just down the road, the old postman's house, Tom's place." The moment I said Tom's name, Susie's friendly demeanor vanished. It wasn't hostile, just guarded. The smile left her eyes. She stepped off the porch, pulling the screen door halfway shut behind her. "Tom's house," she said, her voice low, her gaze fixed on something over my shoulder. "That's a bold choice." "Why's that?" I asked, a knot tightening in my stomach. That place has a bad history. I moved in just a couple of months before it all happened. Woke up one morning and Tom's yard was swarming with cops, yellow tape everywhere. Turns out he was a suspect in something awful. And then he just was gone, vanished into thin air. No one's seen him since. A chill snaked its way down my spine. "Something awful?" She lowered her voice to a whisper. "A kid went missing, a little boy from the next town over. They never had enough to charge Tom, but the rumor started. They said Tom was the last one to see him." I was floored. Tom? Our Tom? The cheerful, round-faced mailman who always had a stash of caramels in his bag for us kids? Sure, he was a loner, and we'd sometimes poke fun at him for being a bit strange, but he seemed utterly harmless. Do you believe it?" I asked. She just shrugged. "I barely knew the man, but you know what they say, Where there's smoke, there's fire. Anyway, Charles, I gotta run. Good luck with the house." She turned and disappeared inside, leaving me alone with a swarm of uneasy thoughts. That night, I opened my laptop. A few hours in newspaper archives, and I found it. David Miller, 10, missing. He disappeared on March 17th, 2001. Never found. On March 20th, a volunteer search party found one of his rubber boots on the shoulder of the highway connecting our town and his, the left one. In the grainy crime scene photo, it lay in the mud, a small, ominous piece of a puzzle that was never solved. The closing went off without a hitch. When I pressed the city clerk about Tom, she just shuffled papers and assured me the property was legally unencumbered. By 2025, the previous owner would have been 89 years old. The odds of him showing up to claim his property, she assured me, were effectively zero. A month flew by in a blur of repairs. I got to know the other neighbors, but whenever I'd casually bring up Tom, they'd change the subject or just mumble that he was long gone. The old postman's secret was a ghost that haunted the whole street. Finally, it was time to tackle the garden. On a warm afternoon, I was digging a hole for that plum tree I'd dreamed of. My shovel hit something hard with a dull thud. It wasn't a rock. The sound was hollow. I started digging faster, my heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and excitement. Soon, the metal-banded corner of an old steamer trunk emerged from the dirt. It took me 2 hours of sweating and swearing, but I finally hauled it out of the ground. It was a classic 80s-era trunk, the kind people used for storage. The lock was a rusted mess, but it wouldn't give. I had to use an angle grinder. With a scream of tortured metal and a shower of sparks, the lock fell away. I lifted the lid. The smell hit me first. A damp, musty, sickeningly sweet odor of decay. I peered inside, and I staggered back. My heart skipped a beat, then started hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. Lying on top was a single rubber boot, a right one, a perfect match for the one in the police photo. Beneath it were more children's clothes, a faded superhero t-shirt, a tiny pair of jeans, a little knit cap. The entire trunk was filled with them. Bile rose in my throat. I stumbled back into the house, my fingers fumbling with my laptop's trackpad. Kansas cold cases, missing children. I clicked through link after link, my eyes scanning photos of smiling, lost children, comparing their clothes to the items in the trunk. With a wave of revulsion, I'd force myself to go back outside, pulling another piece of clothing from the chest. The pain in my chest was a vice tightening with every confirmation. A match. Another. And another. I sat on the grass and sobbed. At the very bottom, under the last faded shirt, my fingers touched something flat wrapped in burlap. I unwrapped it. It was a stack of old Polaroid photos, dozens of them, pictures of different children, laughing, playing in the sun, completely unaware. I flipped through them, the pain in my chest becoming unbearable. The faces began to blur into a single, horrifying collage until I saw a face I knew. Mine. There were several pictures of me. Me at 9, proudly sitting on my new bike. Me at 12, holding a fishing rod down by the creek. Me at 14, squinting into the sun on my own front porch. The world went black. My last coherent thought was, Tom, his caramels, and then nothing. I woke up to the sterile smell of antiseptic, white ceiling tiles, the rhythmic beep of a machine, a hospital room. A nightmare, I whispered. Just a stress-induced nightmare. I tried to sit up and knocked over my IV stand. It crashed to the floor. The door flew open. A uniformed police officer burst in, followed by a nurse. When I saw his badge, I knew it wasn't a dream. "Easy now, sir," the nurse said, gently guiding me back down. "You need to stay calm. Just breathe." I leaned back against the pillows and stared out the window. The cop stood silently by the door, just watching me. And I knew that his questions were only the beginning of a new nightmare, one I would never wake up from.